Hey guys, I got a little machining video for you. I need to make one of these, which goes in there. There's a fine adjustment for these Mikuni Round-Slides, these old style ones, and it looks like that when it's sort of right. Actually, this is probably a better example of one. So it has a jam nut and a slot in the top of it. The smaller section is the section where the jam nut and the screwdriver slot is, and in this section down here it's got the little rounded profile, which goes to that little rounded ball shaped section down in there, which is that arm that connects to the slide itself. So I'm going to go ahead and make one of these if I can, because this one's pretty trashed. So I figured I'd do a quick video on it, a little machining video. What I'm going to do here is just use an old bolt, and just gave it a skim cut to get me a good surface on the threaded section. It's just a regular bolt, non-hardened. I don't know if this is going to clean up all the way. I got to get the threads to clean up, but I can always use the shank section. But I need to bring it to 5/16 or 3/12 because it's 8mm. That's close enough. So right now we're at what was that again? Okay, right now we're at what, 340. So we'll just bring her down appropriately. 330. It might. It's only 10 thou, so it's almost completely cleaned up. About 18. Ugh, might just barely get it. I think that'll be good enough. There's just a remnants of it. I gotta lube my spindle, said the wife. Yep, right on the money. Well, actually a couple thou over, we'll just bring it in with a file. But yeah, that'll be a good starting point for our main body of it. The major diameter, of course, is the 8mm, and then we'll cut it down for the M5 later on. Go ahead and give it a face, and then I'm going to work on that profile, a little round spot. Now I got to figure out how to do that. I could make a form tool for it, but I'm not really sure if I want to go through all that. I don't know. Let me think about it a second. I've got this guy in an old style tool holder. I have to switch over to the lantern tool post, and I think I can cut it with this, no problem. It just has to be a radius in there. I'm going to try something different. I ground a radius on the end of a drill bit, and I'm going to try that instead. Yeah, I think that's a lot better. Oh yeah, much more pinpoint. See this one's got a more pinpointed little divot in there, a round divot. So that form tool is definitely not going to do. So more suitable for a drill bit, and then we'll go ahead and face it back to where it looks like about the same, depth basically. That's what we're going to do now. Oh, that's about perfect. I'll show you that later. I don't want to take it out of the chuck now. I want to do as much operations in the same setup as possible. Yep, looks good from my house. Now a little chamfer. Yeah. Die probably won't even start on it because it's made in freaking China. But we'll have to try something, huh? Because fixing the other one, I mean, I can do it, it'll work, but I know it's just not that great. I'd rather have something I know is good. And if I make it, it has to be good, right? Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one either. Ichabod is inside having just about a seizure, barking at some dog going up and down the road, so yeah, fun times. I got the die holder set up with that M8 die, MA 1.0. Got it in back gear. And we'll see how much of a fail we can make out of this, because this Chinese die is probably, crap. So what are you going to do, It is what it is. Carriage, get out of the way. What I'm going to do is let the tailstock float. Don't really have to, because this floats on itself, but I'm going to go ahead and jam it in. And then see if it'll actually bite and take a bite out of crime. Make sure it's really tight in the chuck. Yeah, see what happens. See what kind of freaking disaster. Sorry, didn't mean to reach across you. Disaster we can see from this. I know I got the die in right. I think maybe I put it in backwards. Oh, you know what? Did I leave? Oh, I got the die in wrong. I don't have the starter threads sticking out where it's supposed to be. Doy. All right, let's try that. I filed back a little bit more of a chamfer there. The original part actually has that feature on this larger end. Either that or it's just damaged. I don't know which. One of the two. She won't start and basically ruin the end now. God, what is going on with this? Started that time, but now I'm slipping. Which I kind of expected. Now here's the fun part. I don't have a reverse on my lathe. Alright, I faced it back to clear up that area that got buggered up in my first threading attempt. Threads look pretty good actually. We're going to test them here in a minute. But then I just re-drilled the, with the drill bit I made here. A little profile and faced it slightly bit more. So I think it's pretty good the way that is right there. I might just touch it a little bit more with the drill, just a skosh. It just has to be somewhat of a rounded profile to match up with that little ball shape in there. Okay, I think that's alright. So let's go ahead and take it out and we'll give it a test. That's what they look like. And there's the end I was talking about. A little kind of a ball end. I can always touch that up later on if I want to. Just put some aluminium, or copper, brass around it. And do that. I may regrind that and do a little bit better job on it, but you get the idea what I'm talking about. Because if you compare them side by side, they're pretty similar. All right. Go ahead and clean it off first. I'd say so. Looks good. I'm going to go ahead and make something to hold this workpiece out of a nut. And I'll show you what I'm doing with that here in a second. Nope. That sucker is harder than a coffin nail. That ain't gonna work. Well, it turns out I already had something. This is an 8mm hole through some hex brass stock with a slit in it, so it'll collapse down with the jaws. I'm hoping that the hole isn't too big. If I was gonna tap it, I'd need to drill it for 7mm. Whoops, that won't work. But obviously, we're bigger than that, said the wife. So, see if it'll clamp it enough to do this. I may have to cut this down a little bit because I'm not going to be able to put this in all the way. This is just a test really at this point. Nope. Another fail. God. Alright, I got it where I want it. And, because I essentially have a split collar, and I did run a thread into that. After I essentially put it in the jaws of my vise and squeezed it and then recut that with a hacksaw and did it again and again. And what that unfortunately does is it pushes your hole off to the side. So I put an indicator on this, and then what I ended up doing was just using some shim, aluminum shim, and I got it running pretty good. So I do need to cut this off. And I'm probably gonna have to move it around in here a little bit, but I'll just cut it off right here in the lathe with my hacksaw, and then when I measure up the overall length, I can get this out no problem. I can just loosen this up slightly and then just unscrew it. All right, as long as I don't disturb the location of those shims, we're pretty good. Because it should repeat at least close enough for this thing. So. Yeah, what I'm going to end up having to do is, not sure if I'm going to, my original plan was to cut it down the length, then do the slot. It'll be easier to cut slot with a hacksaw, because I don't have a slitting saw that narrow. Otherwise, I put it in the mill. The narrowest I got is a 1/16. So, what I'm going to do is cut it with a hacksaw, but I think I'm going to cut it while it's big. So, what I need to do is I need to get the overall nominal length down on this. Then put it back in here after I cut the slot. leave enough stick out to do that feature. That way I can work off a reference, because there's no reference I can get out on the back side. But if I bring it down to final length, then I have a reference on the front side to work from. So I just need to turn in that far down to the thread size for that M5. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And this part's pretty easy, actually. What we do is I went in there and faced it. It held just fine for that. We just get an overall width of what it is right now, which is, you're upside down, I'm sorry. But I got the camera upside down, so sorry about that. I'm going to try to do this a little differently here. Yeah, so our size right now, this thing is at 895. Okay, and we want to go down to 860. So we're not too far away from it. So if we know the size here is 895 and we want to be at 860, let's verify that. The overall length here is about 855, but that's good enough. We'll go to 860. So we got to take off basically 35 thou. So that's pretty easy to do. We'll just put this back in and then touch off and then use the indicator on the carriage and just run it over that exact amount once we start facing it down. I won't take that all at once. I don't really trust this, but we'll see when we start cutting it down for the thread. And I can guarantee this ain't gonna hold for threading it, but all I want it to do is hold to get a couple of threads started, and then we'll do the rest by hand. Then we'll flip the die over, and then we'll do the bottom side of the die to get it as close as possible to the shoulder. So yeah, we're at 895. We got to go to 860. All right, off camera what I did was I brought this down to final length. It's about 8 thousandths small, unfortunately. I don't know how I did that, but it's close enough. And what I also did was I put a slot in it, which you can't really see right now, but I'll show you later. And so what I'm doing now is I've got an indicator set up over here on the tool post, and I indicated the tool post in with the cross slide to make sure that I'm going to enter any sign error as far as angle error goes as I move the cross slide in and out. So I'm just getting a zero reference on the outside face. It's going to be my reference surface, and set a 0 here. And what I have to do is I have to turn in 455 thou, which I have written down here, which you can barely see, my fat hands. And then what I'll do is bring it down to a final major diameter for that thread of 192. And this is all imperial, that's for a 5 mil. I just mic'd up the original thread. So I'll make it a little bit large because it might have a couple of thou in wear on it, but then we'll just kind of file it in as we need it. So that'll give us our shoulder there. And it isn't really a shoulder, it's more of a kind of a radius. But we can bring that in by hand afterwards. But there is definitely a shoulder in there, but it's not completely like a sharp edge. Yeah, so this will be the end that I'm working on this one. So it's going to be like this. So I'm turning it in that way, all right? See how we can screw this up. You know what we'll do? Let's do it the Adam Booth way. I wish I had a carriage or a Waze indicator, but I don't. I'm going to bring the, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the carriage down 455 thou, then set the 0 and put a reference mark with a magic marker so I know when I'm getting close. That way I'm going to 0 instead of 455. So it's 100, 200, 300, 400, 50, and 5. Now I'll set a 0 at this end, put a little reference mark, which I do often on this anyway when I'm not dealing with that much precision. That way when I know it comes down to that mark and I line up the 0 here, then I know I'm in the right spot. I think that's going to be a better way to do it. Well, I broke a tool. Interrupted cut. That was weird. That's weird. This ain't hard. It just must have caught it the right way. Yeah, I'm going to have to be careful of that. So I'm going to have to, not a tool rather, I broke an insert. Let me go ahead and change that out and we'll try this again. Alright, I'm going to run a little faster speed too, and then just lighter cuts. Because I think the slower speed's letting it catch in that slot. So let's try that. Well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing wrong here, but something is not right. I keep catching that thing and breaking inserts. Alright, I need to come up with something different because I don't know if this is moving or something. I don't think it is. I don't see it moving. All right, I got to come up with something different. All right, so I know you guys are screaming at your screens right now, assuming you're still watching. The carbide is horrible most of the time on interrupted cuts, so I switched over to high speed. Unfortunately, I can't angle the tool post the way I want and get my measurement correctly without skewing this, depending on how the cross slide goes in and out. So 455 is like really close to the chuck even after bringing this thing out, the jaws rather. So we're going to have to be really careful with this one, but it does clear. So if I go down to my mark and then bring her up to 0. Oh, I didn't do that yet, did I? Wait a minute, let me redo this. So if I bring it up to 0, we've got 30 thou before we hit the jaws. So that's, you know, I've worked closer than that before, so I think we should be okay. It's got to be why we had trouble with that, because, you know, the carbide, like I said, does not like interrupted cuts. So now I've wasted 2 inserts on that, or at least half of the insert, because it's, you know, both sides, but not going to work. Definitely getting some deflection in this. All right, well, gosh darn it. I really wanted to do it this way so I didn't have to clamp anywhere near on those threads, and I don't have a whole lot of length there, so, and I can't bring it in any further, so I don't know what the hell I'm going to do on this. You know, once I get through these threads, it may be okay, because what we're having trouble with is it's catching the thread, and the tool doesn't like that. So maybe I can just whittle it down to get past those threads and stay a little bit shy of my final, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah, now we're past them, and that's a problem with machining threads, because whenever you, especially not in, you know, you have a sketch, or not a solid, but a sketchy setup like this, you end up catching the thread, and the thing wants to pull the carriage, and this thing isn't as, you know, without lash as it could be or should be. So we're gonna now see if we can do it under auto feed. Let me see where I'm at on the diameter. I'm nowhere near it, I know that, but we need to go to 192, so I'll know how much to feed in. We're at 258. So let's see, 258, and I'm gonna have to go at least 40 thou or so and then recheck it, I would say. Maybe 30, I don't know. We're gonna sneak up on it because we got this, like I said, kind of sketchy setup, and see what happens. It is definitely moving. I hit the threads up in there, and okay. Oh boy. All right, well, it doesn't have to be perfectly concentric, but I definitely want it close as possible. I need to reset this. This is all cattywampus now. You know, if I had a nut, a regular steel nut that was an M8 1.0, I would do the same thing with that, and then this would be not an issue. But I don't have one. So we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way here and be sketchy. 200, 300, 400. Yeah, what's happening is, I'll tell you what's happened. The workpiece is screwing into this, and all right, well, I may just have to give up on this setup, to be honest with you. I just don't think it's going to work. I just can't get it tight enough, I guess, on those threads. I can't push it in anymore either. If I do, then I lose my distance. I don't know. Let's try really tightening the crap out of this and see what happens. Let's just take a little cut regardless of measurement and see what it does. Got about 45 thou to go. It seems to be cutting pretty well now, but I just got to be real careful with it. And anyway, I'm going to go ahead and whittle this down and bring you back at that point. Finish cut. I said the heck with the indication. It was complicating things. I just drew a line and I'm going to the line. So we're just about there, about 2 thousandths away. We'll bring the rest of it in with a file, and then chamfer this a little bit with a file is fine. And then I got to set up to at least get that die started, a couple of threads, hopefully. All right, I got the die set up. Excuse me, in the die holder. I'm not going to do this under power. That would be ridiculous. We're going to do this one by hand if I can even get it to start. Feels like it's trying. Maybe. We'll see. It might be enough to get it started by hand over in the vise. Nope. Gee whiz. All right, let me reset and figure this out. You know, unfortunately, I don't have really good dies, and when I have to do something more precision, I order them as needed, and I just don't have any of these two sizes that I've used on this job. Well, I got it in the jaws directly with some of that copper or brass, whatever it is, protecting the threads as much as possible. Remember, I only want to get a couple of threads on it and then take it out, but I want these things to be started straight, and that's why I'm trying to do it this way. Hopefully I can get it to stay put in there while it bites a few threads. Maybe. Then it'll be straight. And then we can finish threading it by hand. At that point it's, you know, pretty easy to do. But, you know, once you get it in straight, that is. It's like she's biting. I don't know if she's turning on the, you know, it's such a small part, it's hard to see. It's getting pretty stiff. Huh. Alright, we'll try that. Yeah, it feels pretty good. Alright, I'm going to finish them up by hand, see what we got. Alright, here's our finished product on the left, and this is the original one on the right here. That's the nut that locks it down. There's also a pretty thick steel washer that goes underneath the nut, but we don't have to worry about that. And the nut thread's on good. I don't have an extra hand to show you, but it does. And I had to just wire wheel it down a little bit and then clean it up. Whoops, there's a little paper towel. And otherwise, I think it came out pretty well. So I'm just going to go ahead and install it in what I'm working on. And then show you that finished product, and then this video is done. Alright, so there it is. There's one of the other ones. This one is clearly just a little bit longer. They're set about the same right now, but these are also very chewed up. Like, for example, that one over there looks, and actually that one looks more like this one, but I still need to do a bench sync on these. What these are for is the Z1R, I'll tell you that right now. So there's going to be a video coming out on that here soon, because I'm having some difficulty with these carbs. This was one of the things I needed to correct, because it was almost impossible to do synchronization. I'm having some other challenges in that area regarding synchronization, but we'll get into that during that video. But this is just video about doing some machining work and figuring out how to solve a problem. I don't know if those are available new. I seriously doubt it. Probably find them on eBay, but you know, why buy something when you can make it and I know the damn thing's going to work. So, all right, that's it. Hope you got something out of it. Hope you learned something. Thanks for watching.